with
I have
respect.
no
She's
idea
been voted in by the people of Illinois.
States because the BBC deceives them with people like this from the far left squad. Did you try to find a socialist to put her on the air? I mean, this is the lowest level of journalistic standards I've ever seen.
All right, we've got another clip of a BBC reporter getting absolutely destroyed live on air. Now, we all know what the BBC are about: biased, corrupt, and pushing one-sided narratives. Most people in Britain know this already, or at least the ones paying attention do. But what makes it even better is when international guests come on their show and call them out to their face. It's happening more and more now, and people all over the world are starting to see the BBC for what they really are, and it's great to watch. Trump's spokesman completely goes in on the BBC during this interview. In today's video, we're going to react to the whole thing, and trust me, it's worth watching all the way through. The first part of the clip is just some far-left type talking the usual nonsense, so stick with me through that. But before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it.
Sure. What I do know, in fact, is that we have a president who has demonstrated that he's not a president, he's a dictator, helping support.
Whoa. Sorry. I'm just going to pause you on that word. He's a dictator. I mean, obviously, he won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. So in no way is he a dictator. He's democratically elected by your people.
Democratically elected by people and acting like a dictator. That is exactly what he's doing. He is telling us that Congress and members of Congress are not an equal branch and acting as if he can take over the authority of Congress and do whatever the heck he wants. That's exactly what he's doing, and that's exactly why I've called him that.
When you say confront, what do you mean, Congresswoman?
I think that some people say, look, I can't show up. I can't sit there and listen to him. To me, you confront a fascist by showing up and looking into his face as he is talking about tearing down the entire democracy of this nation. I think it's important for him to be able to look into our eyes as he lies to the American people, and some of us do fact-checking even in the real time.
You call him a fascist. You believe that?
I believe that to my core.
Congresswoman Ramirez, thank you very much for talking to us here in the UK.
Thank you.
Are you expecting President Trump to, in this speech to Congress, talk potentially about a minerals deal being signed?
Who was that you just interviewed?
That is the Democratic Congresswoman for Illinois.
I've never heard of her. So you put on the most far-left member of Congress you could find to lie to the British people about Trump's successes before you interview me. I honestly have never heard of her.
It doesn't matter whether you've heard of her or not, with respect.
Have no idea
she's been voted in by the people of Illinois.
Because the BBC deceives them with people like this from the far left squad. Did you try to find a socialist to put her on the air? I mean, this is the lowest level of journalistic standards I've ever seen.
So, would you expect Donald Trump to announce the signing of this?
You're not going to answer my question? Why did you put her on?
She's a democratically elected congresswoman.
Did you even ask them?
Forgive me,
if I may. Did you ask the Democratic leadership? They wouldn't have been nearly as crazy as her, who said Trump is a fascist and a dictator. I mean, give me a break. How did you find this person?
Would you like me to answer your question?
Please.
She's a democratically elected congresswoman for Illinois. She will be there when President Trump addresses Congress. We're speaking to a Democrat. We're speaking to a Trump supporter. That is you. Are you expecting?
Yeah, well, I think the British people will realize the hypocrisy here. But anyway, jumping to the minerals deal, I think there's a good chance that President Trump will announce there will be a minerals deal this evening. I've been hearing conflicting reports today, and I think that would be good news for peace in Ukraine, because this is something Trump wanted. It would be a sign of good faith by Zelensky, and I think we can make substantial progress towards a ceasefire to stop the killing in Ukraine if we can get this over with.
Right. And so that tweet from President Zelensky today, you think it did the trick?
Well, I had heard earlier today that there was progress in the negotiations, and I've heard conflicting reports. So I don't know whether that tweet made the difference, but I believe there's been substantial negotiations between the Trump administration and Ukraine since last Friday's meeting in the Oval Office with Zelensky to try to patch things up and move forward with the peace talks.
And everybody's seen Donald Trump's put pressure on President Zelensky. When is he going to start squeezing President Putin, do you think?
I don't think that's really fair. Trump made an offer to stop the war, to start a ceasefire and negotiations with both sides, and Zelensky didn't want a deal. We're engaged in negotiations with the Russians also.
Right. But when are we going to start seeing President Trump squeezing and putting pressure on President Putin, as we have seen him do with President Zelensky?
Zelensky came to Washington not agreeing to sign a deal he said he would agree in the past. And then he came to the Oval Office and acted quite rudely towards the president and towards the vice president in front of the media. So,
right. Whereas President Putin actually illegally invaded an independent country.
Of course it did. Russia was the invader here. And if we could find a perfect solution to get Russia out of Ukraine and to put Putin on trial for war crimes, I'd be for that, but we can't get there. We have to get a peace agreement that's as fair as possible. And I know this will be painful for the Ukrainians to accept, but Trump's priority is to stop the killing.
I know, and he has said that multiple times. He hasn't even said to President Putin, you know, stop firing your missiles and your drones at people in Odessa and Sumy, as we've seen today. There were no conditions for the peace talks in Saudi Arabia, nothing.
You don't know that. He's had long phone calls with Putin.
Well, the killing hasn't stopped from Russia's side.
Yeah, I think it's a tragedy the killing hasn't stopped. And I think Russia should stop the attacks of Ukraine immediately. And we need to do something to get both sides to the negotiating table to get that accomplished. And in a perfect world, as I said, we'd hold Putin accountable in a war crimes tribunal, but we don't live in that.
What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below, and make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content.